Hi guys, welcome to this new video on pie charts for academic task 1 writing. Here we go, here's an example. You might have seen this one before, it's in one of the Cambridge books. Now often pie charts are too simple to be alone, often they're with something else. In this case it's 4 pie charts together. That's fine, it's the same principle. Doesn't matter if there are one or many. And I'll try and guide you through how to do these. It's the same as all the other ones in the sense that you have an introduction, you have an overview, and you have usually 2 body paragraphs. Maybe 1, maybe 3, but usually you try to aim for 2. As usual, our introduction just says what they say, and of course what they say is, the charts below give information on the ages of the populations of Yemen and Italy in 2000 and projections for 2050. Our introduction says that in our own words, and it also can borrow from the data in the sense that I could maybe talk about what age groups we're talking about. So I could say in the age group 0 to 14 years, 15 to 59 and over 60. I could add that to my introduction if I wanted to. I wouldn't add any of the particular percentages though. That's what we need to do in our introduction, and let's have a look at what I said for my introduction. The charts illustrate, so instead of give information on, I just changed that to illustrate. And remember, you don't need to say below. The charts illustrate the population breakdown by age group. I could have added which age groups, but I didn't in this case. By age group in 2000 for Yemen and Italy, and the projected changes in 2050. So as you can see, exactly what they said, but just in my own words. The next bit that says summarize the information, don't need to worry about that, that's not a part of our introduction. Then we go into our overview. Now our overview is just looking for the obvious features. You should find at least 2 for everything. Sometimes you can find more, and if you do, that's fine. So what are the 2 obvious features that you can see in this one? This might take like a minute in your test to, or even more, to sit down, take your time, have a look. So look with me, okay? Have a little analysis of this one and decide what are at least a couple of main features that you can see about Yemen and Italy. Let's do it together. Okay, if you want to keep thinking about it, just pause the video and keep looking at the pie charts. But yeah, let's get into it. So look at Yemen first. That's what we'll focus on. We'll go by country. So you have 46% of 15 to 59 and 50.1% 0 to 14. Only 3.6 is over 60. So to me, the obvious thing is like, oh, we've only got 3.6 here of white. To me, like, wow, clearly the white is small. Alright, so as a child, if I was looking at that, I'd be going, the white one is the small one. And yes, that's as simple as it should be. And then the 2050 Yemen one, the white one is still very small. Okay, now the black one has got bigger, so that's 15 to 59, so the children are sort of disappearing. The children are growing up in 2050. The seniors are getting a little bit older, so generally speaking I can see the population getting older, but there's still not that many like seniors. So that's what I'm seeing with Yemen. Very young population, very few seniors. By 2050 it's a bit older, but still relatively not that many seniors. Let's look at Italy now. So the year 2000, what do you see? Oh, really big black section, 15 to 59. 24% over 60, 14.3. Okay, so the obvious thing again is 15 to 59 years. Most of the people are that age. And relative to Yemen, there's quite a few old people too, old people over 60. No offense if you're over 60. Let's look at 2050 Italy. There's much more white now. 42% is white, 46% is black, 15 to 59. Only 11% is children, 0 to 14 years. So again, I'm seeing Italy's population get older. And in comparison to Yemen, Italy's population was much older from the beginning, and in 2050 it will still be much older. So they're the main features that I can tease out of those charts. There might be other things that you've found, but that's what I find are the main features. Ooh, that's a fair bit. Okay, so how am I going to put that in an overview? Well, I'll show you what I said. I said, overall, both Yemen and Italy's populations are expected to be significantly older in 2050 than at the start of the period. Both are getting older. Also, Italy's population is and will continue to be considerably older than Yemen's. Okay, the two things. The populations are getting older, and Italy is older in comparison to Yemen. Now this is what I would say is the most minimal overview you could get for this particular task. I'm giving you a very simple one. If you wanted to go into more detail in your overview, you could. Okay, this is the simplest way I could have written it, I think. But that's okay. It's good to have, I think, a simple example for you. Alright, so now we've got our overview done, we need to get to work in writing our body paragraphs. So body paragraph 1. Now, you could go by year, what happened in 2000 and then what happened in 2050. For me, it's much easier to go by country. Just as we did in the past with line graphs, for this one, we're just going to give the figure in 2000 and then we're going to give the figure in 2050. But when we do that, we're going to talk about it in comparison to the data around it. So when I talk about 2050, I'm going to talk about it like in comparison to when it was the year 2000. Here we go, body 1. In the year 2000, alright, simple, I'll put the 3 in. Just over half of Yemen's population were infants and children between the ages of 0 and 14 years. Why didn't I say 50.1%? Because I want to show a variety of ways to give percentages. Don't always do the same thing. If I say 50.1%, that's fine. But I'm going to use specific percentages later. So I thought, hey, here's an opportunity to say just over half. A little under half, 46.3%, consisted of 15 to 59 year olds, while only 3.6% were over 60. By the way, see how I've got 46.3% in brackets or parentheses? Don't do that too much. I set myself a limit of doing it twice in one task. So don't do it more than twice. That should not be your go-to choice. Next, projections for 2050 indicate that the youngest cohort percentage, in other words children, will decrease significantly. See, all of that is just comparison language, making comparisons where relevant. I could have just said this was the number in 2050, but no. Projections for 2050 indicate that the youngest cohort percentage will decrease significantly to exactly 37%. In contrast, there will be a moderate increase in the percentage of people between 50 and 59 and a slight rise in the overall proportion of seniors. So notice I said in contrast, showing comparison and contrast. The increase, I'm explaining that it's moderate, so again that's showing comparison and contrast. It's not about this is what it was in 2000, this is what it is in 250. This is what it was and this is what has happened and this is how it is in comparison to this number. Let's do Italy. Now it'll be the same thing. In 2000, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Italy had very different demographics to Yemen. Why did I say Italy had very different demographics to Yemen? I'm trying to show the examiner that I'm putting the data in context of the data around it. I'm putting a link between Italy and Yemen. I don't just want to have my links between the year 2000 and 2050. I do want to link Italy to Yemen as well. So that's why I've done that. Moving on, with only 14.3% between 0 and 14 years and just over 60% being 15 to 59. The biggest difference to Yemen was seen in the elderly category, with almost a quarter of Italy's population being in this cohort. So that's back in the year 2000. Almost a quarter, 24.1%. By 2050, Italy's elderly population will be almost equal to 15 to 59-year-olds. Alright, it's a fancy way of saying they're almost the same. At just over 42% and 46% respectively, while the percentage for children will fall marginally to 11.5%. Again here, talking about the fall, that's relating the year 2000 with the year 2050. So most of this, I've kept it simple. Body 1, I compared Yemen 2000 to 2050. Body 2, I compared Italy 2000 to 2050, but at the start, I said Italy had very different demographics to Yemen. So I just gave a little bit of a link between Italy and Yemen as well, just to make sure the examiner doesn't go, hey, you had Yemen completely separate from Italy. Now, this is a very simple way to write it, but in the test you don't have time to write like a textbook one with all the detailed things you could find between Italy and Yemen. There's probably more there, but that's enough. We're trying to do a real example here, not 3 hours to think about it, textbook example. So I hope you get the idea. Just give the percentages, try to use different language. Don't always use 46.3%, 3.6%, 50.1%. Use fractions, okay? A half, 2/3, just over this, just under that. Make sure the data is in relationship to each other. Make sure there is some comparison and contrast. And that's pretty much it for pie charts, okay? They're fairly straightforward. So if you need to, watch this video again, read through to see some of the specific language I've used. But the actual structure is not too difficult and very similar to all the other Task 1 academic structures that you use. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll go to bar charts for the next video. Thanks guys.